Hey everybody, Dave Lindbergh in Hong Kong with another episode of the THD Podcast. Today we have a company from Montreal that is pursuing the ultra-wideband wireless audio markets. We're going to find out about Spark Microsystems. But let's not forget about our sponsor. Where are they? The ALTI Association. They have an event coming up in March in Phoenix, so we encourage people to go check that out. But without delay, let's say hello to everybody. We have Colin Ward in the Philippines joining us today as our co-host. Hello, good morning, Colin.
Morning.
And Fred Nabki, the CTO of Spark Microsystems. Good evening, Fred. How are you doing?
Great, thanks for having me.
All right. So yeah, ultra wideband, it's been around for a long time, but it seems like it's finally making some inroads in the audio market for some market share. So we're keen to find out about your technology and what you guys are doing to move past where other people haven't.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been what, 25 years, I think, ultra band, maybe 19 if you want to be exact, that it's been out there. And audio used to be an interesting app, but it kind of fizzled for about a decade and a half, and now it's back. So absolutely, I think there's going to be a second coming.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe let's get into some details with the presentation to help people understand what you guys are doing.
Great, let me share. All right. So essentially, we think our technology, which of course uses the ultra-wide band spectrum, is key for short-range networks. And obviously, audio, I think, for us has been a great beachhead, but other applications going all the way to AR, VR, or data streaming for medical and so forth are definitely on the map. The usual suspects in wireless are doing great. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are not going anywhere, but I think they have their shortcomings, and albeit be power consumption, perhaps latency predictability, or raw data rate capability. I think this is where ultra-wideband can do the last 10 meters and do it better than these other technologies. So at Spark, what we do, we're a company based in Montreal, about 70 people. We've been working for about 8 years on bringing ultra-wideband chipsets that have high data rate capability, low latency, ultra low power, because otherwise we don't think the vision would come to fruition if you can't put this in mobile devices or headsets or other type of battery powered stuff. And we want to be interference robust. And that's key, I think, if you want to be able to do audio transport, since it's all about robustness and not hearing a click or any type of breakdown in the link.
Okay.
So, any questions before I keep going?
No, I think it's good.
Oh,
Great.
agree with your points.
So if I keep going, then our technology is particular. We have a chipset we call the SR 1120. That's a chipset that's going to be introduced in production at the end of the year. We have our current chipset, which is the 1020, and that's already been in production for well over a year. And some audio products have come to market with it. And the idea is this chipset can give 41 megabit per second payload capability. We have a very efficient transport of the data, and importantly also the ability to support the upcoming, if all goes well, low energy ultra-wideband PHY that IEEE is working on. And if all goes well, that standard is going to be published next year in non-draft format. It's already in draft format today. I think the key of the chipset, though, other than having all of the metrics I just mentioned, is to be able to perform with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in the vicinity and dense, RF environments. Otherwise, I don't think the audio streaming promise would really be practical, right? You cannot be in a vacuum, try to do audio. You're going to be in at home. You're going to be maybe in an office space, a lot of people, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. So it's been a key, I would say, a key benefit capability to have this interference robustness to in the picture, even though it's not necessarily a performance metric that people would relate to for audio. If you don't have interference robustness, I don't think your audio will go very, very far, literally.
Yeah.
So I think there's a dilemma, right? I think the user wants high quality audio, at least we believe so, I look at news from companies releasing graphene drivers and different type of audio quality enhancements, even in the gaming space, which hasn't been, I would say, traditionally looking at necessarily high quality audio. People seem to not want latency. At least we see it in the gaming market. The gamers would love to have zero latency audio transport, and obviously the right way to do it today is with a wire. That's it. There's no other way to get that for live video or audio for that matter. So, and of course, nobody wants to break down on Dale Link. So these things are great, but they're all pointing to a wire. And however, people don't like wires and they don't like to have the audio vibe when they're moving of the wire. It generates the acoustics of the wire on your shoulder. They don't want to have to worry about walking away from the desk and being tethered to the desk, right? Because they forgot the headset has a wire on it. And the comfort, so it can't be this massive battery, good battery life, and so on. So these are things that are not necessarily compatible. And I'd say for the last 20 years, people have essentially went with suboptimal audio using wireless technology because it was the only way to get it I would say, in a form factor that made sense. And this is a podcast on audio, so I'm sure everybody understands the limitations of BLE audio when it comes to the audio quality and latency. With latencies that can go well beyond 40, 50, 100 milliseconds, and audio qualities that use codecs that I'll show are not really keeping the fidelity of the audio. So that's basically the right side of this slide. Is with BLE or 2.4 gig radios, you end up having to make a trade-off on your audio experience. And of course, being at 2.4 gig, interference and signal congestions are there, and anybody has experienced that. I think with Bluetooth knows it happens not more than we would like to admit. So I think also Wi-Fi is a very interesting technology. Obviously, great payload capability, but I think it's a bit of a mirage because yes, they can do uncompressed audio performance or lossless. There's also this marketing between lossless and uncompressed, but typically they would consume too much power, and I don't think they provide very repeatable and predictable latency. They may have jitter on the latency, and that for audio usually is not necessarily something one wants. Even if it's low, it's got to also be very predictable and jitter free. So I think that's kind of the dilemma for wireless in audio for the longest time. And of course, I'm going to tell you, we think we cracked it, and we've got a way to alleviate all this. And that's what I'm going to get into in the next few minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I think
So,
a lot of people
yeah.
don't really understand like the ability for left and right channel sync in wireless audio is something like it's very rare to get people to have left and right sync.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing I didn't mention about ultra-wideband. It's a great sync technology because of the sheer, we're talking about nanosecond scale symbols right over the air. So syncing an audio stream in the microsecond realm, right, is not a unsurmountable feat with ultra-wideband technology. People are doing it with other technologies, but it's a lot more involved, and you don't have that intrinsic, nanosecond time scale of your fundamental symbol to help. So indeed, latency 's one thing, but sync is another, and these are things we excel at.
Okay.
So of course, the key here is 48K 24-bit is pretty much the standard today. It's compressed, whether it's LDAC, LC3, aptX. All these are heavily compressed streams that would be in the hundreds of kilobits per second, and anyone can use a spectrum analyzer and show the audio wave is really adulterated and not really maintained, and its fidelity, I guess, isn't maintained. And we think ultra-wideband can not only give you 48K 24 uncompressed. I'm really using the word uncompressed, not lossless, because lossless, okay, is lossless, but it is a half. You still process the audio stream from its source data, and in this case, our goal is to give you a bit accurate output that's as recorded on the media, if it's a digital media anyway. And we want to go all the way to 9624, and that's what we have now. And more importantly, perhaps for the gamer crowd, is we want to make this extremely low latency. We're talking about single-digit milliseconds for you to understand kind of the implications. That is, easily 10x lower than any, aptX latency and so forth. And often the low latency codecs, they trade off quality quite a bit.
So when you say single digit, are you sub 5 milliseconds?
Yeah, we've gone down to 3 milliseconds. We've got demos that we've tried to go lower than 3. It's feasible, but you'd have to be a very specific application.
Typically, musician-like performance, you need to be sub 3 in theory.
Yeah, so we have a demo for guitar, amplifiers, which the latency was tailored to be less than 3, but that was a very specific demo for guitar, and it's always gathers a crowd because you apparently, and I'm no guitar player, you can really tell the finger to ear. Kind of how can I the dynamics or the attack,
I mean, I'm no guitar player either, but maybe not 3, but if I'm using a wireless link with 10, 20, I can feel it. You can tell.
The usual rule of thumb is people say sub 10 you're okay, but the reality is if you have somebody who knows what they're doing with an instrument, you're probably looking at sub 5.
Yeah.
Maybe not me playing instrument, but
definitely not me. But yes, it's true. Definitely true.
And of course, the fact that we bring the hi-fi low latency to the table, you can start thinking, okay, this is like the wireless wire. Finally, I can do what I've done with a wire, which is pretty low tech, right? It's just a copper wire here. But I can do it without caring about the wire being an antenna, because we all know these wires for the high-end stuff are fairly expensive because they shield them and all that to make sure they don't pick up anything, or EMI and all of the as I said, the acoustics of the wire, if you're moving your head. But if you don't do it at low power, I think it's basically a mirage as well. As much as I said, I think Wi-Fi is a mirage for these things. I think, and if ultra-wideband band wasn't low power, I think it'd be a mirage as well, because who wants a headset that has a half a watt ultra-wideband band transceiver in it? No one wants that, or at least they won't want the battery life that comes from that. So, so in our case, our power metrics are such that we are barely like in power consumption for the headset system, except of course we're sending 6 megabit per second audio instead of 100 kilobit per second audio. So there's a big difference. So I think it's the marriage of the power consumption and of course the payload and latency that makes it a special technology. Okay. All thanks to the ultra-wideband band spectrum and of course our chipset. So and this is of course something where probably many of your listeners are quite aware of. And I'm not going to claim this is perfectly accurate. So this is where I'll give the usual warning that some of these numbers may not be perfectly accurate, but I think they're close, and it's more of a representation than an anthology here. But if you look at the usual suspects, they're all typically in the sub megabit per second data rate, and even the lossless stuff does a good job, and we know FLAC and the Apple version, but they're usually going to use a lot of processing power, right? To do the lossless stuff, you need quite a bit of processing power, which translates to typically some latency or a lot of power consumption. If you want to do this in real time and have a single-digit milliseconds, you're not going to do this on an M0 processor. Let me put it this way. And you're going to burn a lot of power and require cost. So where lossless compression is frankly great because it basically halves your rate, it has latency implications and cost and power consumption implications. And sometimes people forget about that one. Whereas, of course, uncompressed, well, if you can do it robustly, is the king of latency because you're not doing any adulteration on the audio feed, and you're just sending the bit stream in the way it was encoded, so you don't get a penalty. And if your phi is also low latency, well, then you get the best of both worlds, and that's when you can hit the 3 milliseconds, the 5 milliseconds, and so on. So I think fundamentally it's important to note that it's not just a benefit of quality, right? Of course, it's the best quality to have it uncompressed. It's also a benefit of cost, and because you don't have to do the all the compression magic and decompression magic, but also power consumption because of that processing, whether we like it or not, takes hips. Right?
Okay.
So and of course, Spark technology essentially currently can do 9624, and that's about 5 megabit payload. And I would say the other thing we've noticed is people want their microphone to be high quality. Maybe they're gamers, or maybe they want to do some recording where they have a headset on, and they don't want their voice to have the very, very low quality voice you get with, I would say, traditional technologies that are maxed out on the main channel and you try to scrape by on the return channel. In our case, our return channel is 48K as well, uncompressed. So you end up with having a pretty good voice quality if you have the right microphone for it, of course, and that's another part of the puzzle.
Yeah. We're starting to see like people using these AI assistants for their meeting notes on their Zoom calls. The accuracy with most of those headsets is pretty low for the voice transcription. So a lot of companies are looking into that actively to find out how do we get a better back channel on the mic performance.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's another kind of hidden, I would say, benefit of our technology that we took for granted. But we realized that a lot of these technologies have very crippled. I mean, they already have main channels that are crippled, right? But they have even more crippled back channels. And if you want to start doing, head tracking, or you want to do AI audio processing, or any type of real-time voice echo or ambient noise canceling, low latency on the back channel and high quality of the back channel to give data to that processing engine is actually a great feature to have, and that's where at that point 2.4 gig just doesn't have what it takes to do that at all.
Mm-hmm.
So this may be known from some of your listeners since this is a THD, right, podcast. But if you look at audio quality of here, I just put 4816 just because it's kind of one of the well-known or CD-like qualities. And you look at aptX HD spectrums, and on the right side, well, we see the wire. Not very interesting to see the wire. There's a little bit more noise on the wire, and one would argue maybe the wire itself was acting as an antenna in that test. But nonetheless, the audio quality is maintained, and where you're not seeing an odd shaping of the noise floor or whatnot. This is a multi-tone test with the 5 frequencies you see here on the top left. And we see LDAC and aptX, clearly do stuff to the audio. With LDAC, if you look at it being, I would say, perhaps a little slightly more fidelity than aptX HD, but I'd leave that to the expert to decide which one is the least worst of the two. Mm-hmm. But if you go to say 96K, and again, we couldn't run the LDAC device at 24. It was essentially not functioning. So clearly they have to work on that firmware for that particular module. We did here a DIM30 test, which is you see kind of the waveform. I'm no audio specialist, but apparently that's a waveform that can be a realistic, less synthetic than a pure sine, and you see here now that LDAC starts to show its colors more in that. And by the way, the aptX, we couldn't get a device that could do 96 at all in this test, and I'm sure there are that exist. I'm not saying it can't do it, but that's why I only show LDAC. So you can see here that the wire, of course, and Spark are the same, and nobody should be surprised. We're just saying the same bit stream across. Once you know the bit stream is not altered, it's not a surprise to see the same FFT on both sides. But the LDAC is affecting your noise floor and the harmonics, and we even see some flutter, which is interesting. Now, I'm told experts can look for this with their ears, right? And actually, experts would be able to tell. I would say that if you don't have the right audio path, it's not going to matter, right? If you don't have good drivers and so on. But again, we're seeing, I just saw a press release from a gaming vendor saying, hey, we got graphene drivers, graphene drivers now in our gaming headsets. And of course, the only benefit of that is the dynamic, is the whole frequency response to the driver. But then what's the point if you're not going to give it justice with a high frequency 96K feed that's not heavily compressed? So hopefully these companies will come to us next and say, well, I fixed the driver part, but I got the wireless part that's kind of screwing up my plan, right?
Mm.
So that's something to discuss with them as audio quality seems to be taking a tangent to the gaming world. And that's interesting because, hi-fi has been traditionally not necessarily consumer focused, but now why are these, and this is not the first company I see. I also think I know at least two or three big companies in the field of gaming headset that are priding themselves on their driver design, and that to me is not very old news. It's fairly
Yeah.
recent. A new
Yeah.
trend. I don't know if you have comments on that, David. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, PlayStation bought Odyssey.
That's right.
I think it's Planar, right? The guy's out of Los Angeles. Uh,
Yeah.
and but just in general, the price point of gaming headphones the last 20 years. I mean, a Turtle Beach headphone 15 years ago was maxed out, maybe $40, $60. I think Turtle Beach have a SKU above 250 now. So there, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
also like, we're not growing up. We're still playing games like so it's
Well, it's a big market.
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember talking to Skull Candy probably 10 years ago or more, and their market research was telling them that their customers, as they aged, were going to look for Sennheiser products. And so Skull Candy at that time at least was looking to how could they make themselves more competitive with the likes of Sennheiser and such. But there hasn't really been like a brand that, really captured the hi-fi audio in gaming, or maybe I'm missing it. I don't know, but there definitely is a premium audio market in gaming for sure.
Well, Sony, I think, was a year and a half ago that happened, that acquisition. I mean, these graphene driver products are no more than 2, 3 years old. So clearly there's a new trend. I find that exciting because I also had read an article the other day that audiophiles were in extinction because all this, all this Bluetooth audio is making people not realize that they could have used a CD and got much better audio quality, with a wire that's, a buck.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And a decent pair of maybe headphones that would still be $99, but no wireless on them, right? So I think that's an interesting social experiment. Is the taste for good audio going to die if we never have it anymore? And that's an interesting article, but probably not my expertise. So I'll leave that at that.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. At AES this year, we're going to have a paper presenting some of these results with, of course, a little bit more detail. And we're going to go all the way to 9624 in that paper. And we have a workshop where we really want to dwell deeper with hopefully the audio experts there in New York at the show. I think that's in October, mid-October-ish. So it'll be exciting to talk to actual, audio engineers and see their perspective on whether this wireless pipe fixes a lot of their problems or at least opens up things they didn't think possible using wireless, right? For the longest time, wireless has been, okay, if I want to do audio, I got to trade off quality and latency. So this will hopefully be a game changer.
Mhm.
So, and the hope is to get to a point where customers can go all the way to high-res audio. Obviously, we don't have products yet that have been released with our chipset that have gone into high-res audio certification. I wanted to be very transparent, but we are hopeful that we've got a couple customers in the pipeline where they will release high-res audio stamped wireless headsets. And we know high-res audio can be done with compressed, but this would be, high-res audio with wire-like SNRs and audio quality. You just saw those spectrums. So if somebody wanted to market this, all they'd have to do is talk about traditional audio metrics like THD or or SNR, and that would leave in the dust a lot of the compressed audio feeds that, yeah, they may say they have 24 bits, but anybody measuring the SNR will see that it's nowhere near that. And that's the other conundrum in audio, right? We all know that a DAC that's 24 bits is it's a mirage as well, and that's the other marketing piece in audio that I'm learning to understand as we get into that
Yeah,
market.
there are many mirages in audio.
Yeah. So we have a headset that we are going to introduce. This is not actually the prototype because I can't unwrap that today for you. It's going to be a CES premiere, but this is just an old prototype of it. So the one we're going to introduce at CES is going to be much more commercial like. This is clearly for a giant head and so forth, but it was a good prototype to develop all this. And the concept was to be able to get all the way to 9624, get the single digit millisecond latency, get an uncrippled back channel, and interestingly say we're not here necessarily to replace Bluetooth. We're here to enhance the user experience. And when the user wants to go, to the kitchen in the basement, obviously ultra-wideband won't close the link. That's the downside of ultra-wideband being a 7, 8, 9 gigahertz technology. You're not going to get the same range. It's the laws of physics. So this device will actually automatically go from Bluetooth to ultra-wideband audio seamlessly with minimal, I would say, hearable effect. And to my knowledge, that's the first of its kind, where now you're getting all of the safety. I call it the safety blanket of Bluetooth, right? You know you're going to get that Bluetooth experience for the range, but when you're sitting down or in your room or in the room next to yours, you're going to be going at, full uncompressed 9624 and get all the benefits. So we're really excited to introduce that headset at CES this year. We'll also give a sneak peek at AES next month. So it's going to be great. Range, just to give you perspectives, this is just one of the profiles we have. You're looking at, latencies for that particular profile at 7 milliseconds. We've done others, as I was mentioning to you, Colin, slightly below 5. This is, by the way, latency from analog to analog. This is not, so it includes all of the codec latencies, to go from the bit stream to the analog. So if you were to plug in if you were to plug an analog audio jack on the wireless transmitter and adulterated the headset to get the drivers out to an analog, that's the number you'd measure. So it's not just the RF latency or the audio latencies.
Right, it's end to end effectively.
It's end to end. That's correct. So this kind of cartoon on the right is just to kind of show the perspective. Is you've got this bubble, right? 10 meters. You get this uncompressed 9624. The system can then give you from 10 to 20 meters 48K. You could decide to use 80 PCM if you feel that's accurate enough, but you can just go directly to Bluetooth. This is all configurable, and we hope our customers will have their different versions of tailoring this onion, right? But yes.
So quick question. Sorry to interrupt. What?
Yeah.
So you end-to-end latency? I get that. But what's the channel alignment, left to right?
Oh, I mean, it's essentially, I would say we're like sub microseconds.
Sub microsecond. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and this was a big. I mean, this was one of the last few things we kind of buttoned up on this headset because, we have the audio precision system, and just getting that system to be able to measure those offsets was a challenge, and understanding how to measure it, because of course the layman or even maybe an enthusiast would have a hard time getting to measure these offsets and realize that maybe they've got a sample delay or whatever between both. So we really had to do a little bit of fine tuning, but we've got to a point where now, at least to an audio precision system, this is as well aligned as it can be.
Right, that's good.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's an important piece that we don't necessarily talk about. But if your audio is just going to bother you, right, and you won't know exactly why, or if the alignment is variable because it kind of moves around. We've seen that as well. It will give you this weird echo or almost like a 3D feel, but not the good 3D feel. You know what I mean? Yeah,
strange.
That's something that we learned. Great. And so the idea, of course, is you get this technology where you can leverage Bluetooth if you want it. You don't have to. You can remove the whole Bluetooth if you don't want a customer to even have to do it with Bluetooth if they don't care about the range. But you can also get a lot of mix and match. And the beauty is the system does this dynamically without you having to flick a switch it will just close the link with the highest audio quality possible based on your distance from your hub.
Hmm.
And that's it. I mean, I hope that wasn't too much information. Maybe we go more to an open discussion, I guess, David, about
Yeah,
what I. Yeah.
That was great. Very interesting.
make us bigger. All right.
Yep.
So, no, I mean I definitely think like picking your battles and like the gaming, the latency is definitely one that's there. And also as we've discussed, like the movement to better quality and better features in gaming is endless. Like you see more innovation in gaming than almost any other audio segments. So I think that's a wise choice, like commercially. But yeah, Colin, do you think you have any other questions?
Well, just do you see you're at 9624 right now? Do you see going beyond that to maybe, well,
Yeah, 192.
or 9224 or 3296?
Well, we definitely have more bandwidth with the chipset. As you saw, our latest chipset has an over-the-air rate of 41 megabits. So, with coding and all that, you can get definitely more than 6 that we're taking now for this 9624. So I would say it's feasible. Is it the biggest market for us though? I'm not
No,
certain.
it's
But
clearly not.
if we've got customers willing to spend the right amount to get it developed, I think at least the technology can do it, and they can do it themselves with our SDK. We are fairly open as a company when it comes to letting customers,
Okay.
adjust the audio path. We have a company that will soon come out with a pretty high-end speaker system with our chipset in it, and they basically rewrote the whole audio code. They decided that they want to do it their own way, and maybe they have something better than what I just showed you. But hopefully, we'll get to announce that in October as well.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm thinking of some pro stuff that I've been involved with for 20 odd years or so. But okay, and so is there scope? So right now, you're selling a stereo pair. Can you have multiple pairs in the transmission? Is it possible?
You mean having a one-to-many devices transmission?
No, not one to many, but broadcasting maybe 4 stereo pairs on the old.
Right now, we have what I call one-to-N, so with multicasting, because it's not actually broadcasting. Every device is acknowledging the frames it receives just to have the maximum robustness. We will be working, if all goes well, next year on a broadcast protocol, and that will probably come later. It hasn't been a focus because in the gaming space, it wasn't the first feature, but I think it'll be very compelling, especially if we want to take this technology to home theater systems, where you have 7+ speakers.
That's one application.
So I'd say that's one of the things we've been toying with some, I would say, proof of concept demos internally that have been done. And again, the technology has the bandwidth to do it. It's more about now the will to get it to market with the right alpha customers.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a commercial balance there where you'll get a lot of like hi-fi guys or pro guys asking for this endless feature creep, but
Dave.
Yeah,
We never master that.
in a semiconductor world, like it's always a challenge in audio, like getting enough volume, the right market space versus still servicing the audio world and differentiating. Because like like people asking for multi-channel home theater, but how many units of a 7.1 does anybody actually sell? I mean, it's 100,000, but that's not really enough to spin a chip on. So
For sure. And I'm hearing from people also that the soundbar is killing the home theater. And of course, it's been killing it for a decade. Maybe it will never kill it, but it definitely is contracting its expansion or the market for these speaker systems. So, but I will say that our first wins, in audio, were speaker systems. I mean, Sonus Faber, which is a pretty high-end brand, and as I said, soon another one next month is introducing these speakers where they use us to sync the left and right. These are kind of bookshelf-like systems. And we're immensely grateful to these companies because they took a first dive in with ultra-wideband band technology in audio I think there's been audio with ultra-wideband band probably 15 years ago, but that's the first time in a while anyway that somebody has used anything else than 2.4 gig to do their audio connectivity. And to my knowledge, this product is at least getting very great reviews. And what I love is nobody talks about the ultra-wideband, and that means we're doing our job, right? Because if people talk about the wireless, usually it's probably because they don't like what it's doing, or they don't like its quality or the sync, and then all these reviews comment more about the software and how great these are. This new trend of having 2 amp speakers, each of them have their own amp. And that system has 15 millisecond latency, which is funny because it could be probably low enough for gamers, but of course it's an expensive set of speakers for a gamer. But who knows? Maybe if any gamers are listening, they may want to buy that system for someone's favor. It's a well hidden gem for gamers. But
well, if my son's listening, I'm not paying for it. So.
Well, yeah, I gotta say this one's not a cheap one. Yeah, indeed.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, Fred, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate that. And maybe we'll circle back in a year's time or something, get some updates on where you guys are going with this technology. It's exciting. And like we prefaced at the beginning, it's been around for a while. So we'll see if it takes hold this time. And I think gaming is definitely the market that should be tackling this technology. So all right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and like, subscribe, and share this out. And so, yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.